I am True with True Concept 360, back with another video. Let's jump right into it.
Who processed their marriage license noted the strange atmosphere. A bride still recovering from near-fatal injuries, a groom under police suspicion, yet both signing their names with steady hands. This wasn't just an unexpected marriage. It was the beginning of a complex chain of events that would affect every aspect of the murder investigation. The question everyone asked, why would a woman marry someone linked to her attempted murder? Experts in domestic violence patterns point to a complex mix of fear, trauma bonding, and survival instinct. For Edwina, the decision likely stemmed from multiple pressures converging at once. As the mother of Brown's two children, she faced the challenge of maintaining family stability. The shared custody of Danny Thury and Danielle created an unbreakable link to Brown. One he potentially used to his advantage. Financial dependency played its part. With medical bills mounting from the shooting and two children to support, Edwina's vulnerability peaked. Brown positioned himself as a protector and provider during her recovery, a calculated move that exploited her weakened state. Her isolation grew as friends struggled to understand her choices, inadvertently pushing her closer to Brown. The trauma of the shooting itself might have distorted her decision-making, creating a psychological state where returning to the familiar, even if dangerous, felt safer than facing an uncertain future alone. Most telling was Brown's behavior in the hospital during her recovery. He remained constantly present, controlling who could visit, managing her care decisions, and establishing himself as her primary support system. This period of intense vulnerability created a perfect storm where Brown could manipulate Edwina's fears and dependencies to his advantage. The marriage marked one point in a longer pattern of separations and reunions between Edwina and Brown. Before Daniel Hill entered the picture, Edwina had left Brown multiple times, each departure followed by passionate reconciliations. Friends recalled how Brown would appear at her workplace with gifts, make grand gestures of change, and promise a better future. Each time, the cycle repeated: tension, separation, reconciliation, peace, then tension again. This pattern intensified after Hill's death. Brown crafted a narrative of redemption and protection. He portrayed himself as Edwina's shield against further violence, though he was its source. On social media, they presented a united front. Their posts showed family outings, celebrations, and moments with their children. But close friends noticed Edwina's changing behavior. Her once active social life dwindled. Her vibrant personality dimmed. She stopped sharing personal struggles with longtime confidants. At church functions, Brown remained constantly at her side. What looked like devotion to outsiders felt more like surveillance to those who knew their history. When Edwina's business flourished, Brown inserted himself into its operations. Each success she achieved came with increased control from him, masked as support. The cycle continued, growing more intense with each turn until that final fatal day in 2023. The newlywed bliss lasted exactly 4 days. On a cold morning, police cruisers surrounded Brown's residence. The evidence investigators had gathered proved too substantial to ignore, despite Edwina's sudden marriage to their prime suspect. Detectives arrested Brown, charging him with capital murder for Daniel Hill's death and attempted capital murder for Edwina's shooting. The arrest affidavit revealed detailed evidence: phone records linking Brown to both Gordon and Jones, financial transactions showing money transfers, and witness statements placing him at meetings with the shooters. In custody, Brown maintained his innocence, claiming the marriage proved his love for Edwina. But investigators saw it differently. They viewed the hasty wedding as an attempt to prevent Edwina from testifying against him, as Arkansas law allows spouses to refuse to testify against each other. The arrest created an immediate crisis for Edwina. Now married to a man in jail for allegedly trying to kill her, she faced impossible choices. Her children's father sat in a cell while she recovered from wounds he supposedly ordered. The community watched as she navigated this nightmare. Her recent wedding ring, now a symbol of the twisted situation she found herself in. August 2012, the case against Danny Brown Jr. began to crumble. Despite strong initial evidence, the phone records, money transfers, and witness statements, prosecutors faced an insurmountable obstacle. Their key witness had become their greatest challenge. The district attorney's office found themselves in an impossible position. Without Edwina's testimony, the circumstantial evidence alone wouldn't secure a conviction. The case against Gordon and Jones proceeded differently. Gordon received a life sentence, while Jones accepted a plea deal, receiving 55 years for first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder. But Brown, the alleged mastermind, walked free. The prosecution had to drop all charges against him, marking a frustrating end to months of investigative work. Little Rock's legal community buzzed with discussions about the case's collapse. The investigators who had built the case against Brown watched helplessly as their work unraveled. Some officers maintained close contact with Edwina's family, concerned about what might follow. The dropped charges meant Brown returned home to Edwina, their marriage now legally unchallenged. The justice system, designed to protect victims, found itself powerless against a victim's choice to stand by her alleged attacker. Edwina's transformation from key witness to uncooperative participant stunned prosecutors. Court documents described her as becoming increasingly antagonistic toward their efforts to convict Brown. In meetings with the district attorney's office, she changed her story multiple times. Details she had previously provided with clarity became clouded with uncertainty. Her once precise timeline of events grew vague and contradictory. Behind closed doors, victim advocates tried to reach her. They recognized the signs: a victim protecting her abuser, fear masquerading as love. But Edwina maintained her stance. In official statements, she claimed her initial accusations against Brown came from confusion and trauma after the shooting. She insisted that their marriage proved his innocence, that he wouldn't have harmed her or Hill. The prosecution team watched helplessly as their strongest witness slipped away. Her medical records told one story: a brutal shooting that nearly claimed her life. Her new statements told another, one of miscommunication and misunderstanding. When questioned about the evidence linking Brown to Gordon and Jones, she offered alternative explanations or claimed no knowledge. Every attempt to secure her cooperation met with increasingly firm resistance, until finally, prosecutors had no choice but to accept their case had hit a dead end. From 2012 to 2023, Edwina and Danny Brown Jr. crafted an image of family restoration. Their social media accounts filled with carefully chosen moments: family gatherings, dance recitals, business celebrations. Edwina's bodacious beauty boutique flourished, with Brown often photographed at store events, portraying the supportive husband. They attended church together at Williams Temple, where Edwina shared daily devotionals online, speaking of faith and forgiveness. Their children, Danny III and Danielle, grew up watching this complex dynamic unfold. Edwina threw herself into their activities, coaching Danielle's dance team and celebrating every milestone. In 2020, she secured a position at Blue Cross Blue Shield, adding corporate stability to their family income. Brown remained a constant presence, involved in both the business and family decisions. But those closest to Edwina noticed subtle changes. Her once frequent gatherings with friends became rare. Phone calls grew shorter, often ending abruptly if Brown entered the room. Her vibrant personality seemed muted in his presence, her natural warmth dimming when he was near. While she maintained her public roles, mother, business owner, dance coach, something had shifted. The woman who once lit up rooms with her smile now seemed to calculate every word, every move, every decision. Despite their curated social media presence, cracks in their relationship surfaced regularly. Neighbors reported frequent arguments echoing from their Fairleigh Drive home. At public events, friends noticed Brown's controlling behavior, monitoring Edwina's conversations, checking her phone, deciding who she could speak with. Her once independent business decisions now required his approval. Even more telling were Edwina's brief disappearances from social media, followed by returns with posts about working through challenges and staying strong in faith. In early March 2023, changes in Edwina's behavior caught the attention of those closest to her. She began quietly reaching out to domestic violence resources, making careful phone calls during her lunch breaks at Blue Cross Blue Shield. Her sister noticed extra clothes missing from her closet, a subtle sign she might have been planning an escape. At dance practice, she confided in another coach about feeling unsafe at home. The week before March 27th, Edwina took steps toward independence. She opened a separate bank account, something Brown discovered through their shared phone plan's notifications.
Wow.
She also spoke with her children about staying with their aunt temporarily. Her social media activity shifted. She removed Brown from several photos and stopped sharing their location on posts. The final red flag came when she called her mother, asking to store important documents at her house. These seemingly small actions represented huge steps toward freedom.
Yeah.
But Brown noticed these changes too.
He threatened.
Neighbors reported increased tension at the Fairley Drive home, with Brown's car coming and going at unusual hours. March 27, 2023, began as a typical Monday. Edwina went to work at Blue Cross Blue Shield, handled customer calls, and shared lunch with colleagues. Security cameras caught her final exit from the building at 3:30 p.m. She texted her daughter about dinner plans and headed home to Fairley Drive. What happened next was pieced together from neighbor statements and crime scene evidence. At 4 p.m., the quiet afternoon shattered with gunshots. Unlike the 2012 attack where Brown hired others, this time, he allegedly confronted Edwina directly. Multiple gunshots rang out inside their home. A neighbor's security camera captured Brown's car, leaving the scene minutes later. Inside, Edwina lay critically wounded in their living room, her phone just inches from her outstretched hand, screen displaying an unfinished 911 call. Emergency responders found her fighting for life, but this time, her injuries proved fatal. At the University of Arkansas Medical Science Center, doctors pronounced her dead at 5:17 p.m., ending an 11-year cycle of control and violence.
Man.
Little Rock Police Department's response was swift after multiple 911 calls reported gunshots at 4704 Fairley Drive. First responders arrived within minutes, securing the scene while paramedics rushed Edwina to the hospital. Inside the home, detectives found signs of a confrontation: overturned furniture in the living room, Edwina's broken phone, and shell casings scattered across the floor. The investigation moved quickly, focusing immediately on Danny Brown Jr. His recent behavior had raised concerns. Neighbors reported seeing his car circle the block multiple times that morning, suggesting premeditation. Security footage from nearby homes captured his arrival and hasty departure. Inside the house, investigators discovered a notepad with Edwina's handwriting, listing domestic violence hotlines and shelter addresses. Her work computer revealed searches for divorce lawyers and women's shelters, dating back several weeks. Most telling were text messages to her sister expressing fear about Brown's increasingly controlling behavior. A search of Brown's vehicle, found abandoned at his brother's house, yielded the suspected murder weapon and Edwina's purse, still containing her work ID. For 21 days, Danny Brown Jr. evaded capture, triggering a multi-state manhunt. Law enforcement finally located him on April 17, 2023, hiding in a motel just outside Memphis, Tennessee. U.S. Marshals found him with a packed bag, fake ID, and over $3,000 in cash, suggesting plans to flee further. His arrest was swift and without incident. Prosecutors charged Brown with capital murder, adding weapons charges and fleeing justice to the indictment. Unlike 2012, this time they had surveillance footage, forensic evidence, and a solid timeline of events. The district attorney's office pushed for the death penalty, citing the 2012 case as evidence of a long-term pattern of violence. In custody, Brown maintained his innocence, claiming Edwina's death was accidental during an argument.
Wow.
But evidence told a different story. The multiple gunshot wounds, his immediate flight from the scene, and the planned nature of the attack all pointed to premeditated murder. His bail request was denied, with the judge citing his previous history and flight risk. The case moved toward trial, promising a final chapter in a story that spanned more than a decade of violence. In the wake of Edwina's death, Little Rock's community transformed grief into action. Her dance students performed a tribute at what would have been her next competition, wearing purple ribbons, the color of domestic violence awareness.
I'm telling you, ladies, stop finding yourself in desperate situations to land yourself with someone that you know raise a red flag to take advantage over you. Like I will always say, there's three sides to a case: the plaintiff, the defendant, and the truth. Until next time,